Hey guys, this is Brad from Blue Nile Farm. Welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about, if you're a farmer, do you need a CDL? And if you are a farmer, is it worth even bothering getting a CDL? So I want to talk about some of the CDL issues that are out there, whether you need one or not. Maybe it applies to you, maybe it doesn't, and what your thoughts are on this matter. So I want to cover my thoughts on it, and let's get right to it. So I just got back from an 80-mile trip where I had to pick up this Oliver 1855 from getting repaired after my barn collapsed on it and caused about $5,600 worth of damage. So hopefully she's back. She's going to be ready to go. But having a CDL, which I acquired 4 years ago to help me on my farm to move my own equipment, was something that I chose to do. And there's people that told me all the time, says, why are you going to get your CDL? You're a farmer. You should be able not to get a CDL. Well, let me talk about the CDLs in general, what I know about them, and why you may want to have a CDL even if you're a farmer or not. Bottom line is all the states pretty much go under the federal guidelines, and the federal guidelines are based under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, and they exempt farmers from having a CDL, and under certain conditions. Number one condition is that vehicle being operated and controlled by the farmer. Today I drove my truck, my trailer to pick up my tractor, and I use this truck to transport products, which could be manure, dirt, grain, machinery, which is what I did today, or supplies. And I'm doing this not for hire, but it's my own personal property. And this is what gives you that right. Plus, I'm also only traveling 150 miles or less away from the farm. Those are basically the rules in general that makes it exempt for you to bother having a CDL. So again, operated and controlled by the farmer. Number two, used to transport products, machinery, or supplies. This equipment and what I'm hauling is not for hire or for commercial hire purposes, meaning I'm not charging somebody for actually hauling it, and I'm within 150 miles of my farm. So those are the normal exemptions, but there are potential possible issues where a CDL is required, and that requirement may be the fact that your truck maybe have a gross vehicle weight of over 26,000 pounds, which my truck is. It's a 33,000 pound truck. Also, if you go across state lines, the state might not have reciprocity. So like I know in Ohio, if I travel, I'm on the one county that I'm bordering Pennsylvania. And if I go into Pennsylvania, I have to go through some kind of tax that I have to pay. And if I have to pay fuel, I have to get that. So they call it IFCA. And I have to deal with getting that. And I have never crossed the state lines yet, so I have to really look into that. But you're going to be dealing with an issue that may require a CDL. Also, if you transport certain hazardous waste, it could be chemicals for spraying, it could be a large amount of petroleum products. That might be considered hazardous waste where you need placards, and you might have certain regulations. But for the most part, it seems like the federal government says, hey, you don't really need to have a CDL if you meet certain requirements, and it all depends on what your state does as well. But again, most states follow the federal guidelines. So what are my thoughts on it? Well, 4 years ago I decided to go get my CDL, and the reason I did is because I work law enforcement, and I thought, well, maybe I might want to do a side job, or maybe I want to haul my own piece of equipment, or maybe I want to be a trucker on the side. I don't know. So I went and did some checking on the industry, and I wound up going to school, spent $5,000 to $6,000, and got my CDL. And I went through the program, and it was right before now that they now make it mandatory that everybody has to go to school to get their CDL. And I think that's really a great idea to go to school, even anytime, because there's so much in the trucking industry that I don't understand and don't know, and I think the school did not prepare me to know anything basically about the trucking industry. What it did is it allowed me to have enough basic knowledge just to pass the test, and that's it. They didn't go over anything of any depth about the industry or things you need to learn. It's kind of like they throw you right to the wolves and say, now you got your CDL, go ahead and go find a job. So you have a choice of a Class A or Class B. A Class A CDL is basically where you drive the semi-trucks, the long trailers. You can get a bunch of endorsements, which I do have. I have every endorsement I can get, you know, except for hazardous waste, because that's something you have to kind of go through the federal government and go through a bunch of regulations and constant updates, and I really don't want to do that. So I wanted to keep something very simple. So I had the basic endorsements that I need, and that's how I roll. Now with that CDL, I have to basically every 2 years get a physical, and actually every year I actually have my truck goes through a process where a mechanic will go over it and make sure that it passes and is basically roadworthy. And basically then they put a sticker on it saying that it passes my annual check for safety issues. And basically this year I wound up having to put new brakes on my truck, got some leaks fixed, and it becomes quite costly because, you know, you're dumping money back in your truck because of issues that may arise. And what happens is if an inspector pulls you over and you don't pass an inspection, basically you can get fined, or they can actually shut you down from service. So, you know, for me, I'm trying to do everything by the book. And that's kind of where it got to the point where, hey, how are you going to do things the right way? You know, and another issue that is kind of interesting is the fact that when I first started and got my CDL, I went right out and bought a truck. And I want to buy in a dump truck, a single axle dump, which is the one which is on the, which is what I use all the time right now to transport my equipment. And you know, I wanted a truck that's universal. If I had just a basic semi-truck, it would just haul trailers. You know, with the dump truck, I can haul dirt, I can haul manure, I can haul grain, I can haul fertilizer if I need to. Plus, I can have a tow-behind trailer that I can hook on, that's a pintle hitch, that I can haul all my equipment on. And it works good for my skid steers, my backhoes, and all my bigger tractors. You know, and I feel safe hauling it. And this trailer is a 20K trailer, so I can haul pretty much everything, including my excavator. It just basically puts me right at the limit of 40,000 pounds. So, you know, having the right tools makes it better when you're farming, but at the same time is I don't also have to rely on other people to haul my stuff around. But I'm jumping through all these hoops trying to do things the proper way. So basically what I'm trying to get at, if I'm a farmer, do I really need to get the CDL? My answer is I think it's probably in your best interest to have a CDL, because once you have that CDL, you know, there's no gray area. There's no question. You know, I worry about if I went under the realm of, hey, I'm a farmer, you know, first you're going to have to put the burden of proof's going to be on you. How are you a farmer? Prove you're a farmer. You know, so you're going to have to deal with that in court. Number two is if you ever get in an accident, you know, they're going to be looking at your training, and in a lawsuit, they're going to find out, you know, what your experience level is for driving a truck, which could cause an accident. So I think by having the training of the CDL and being a licensed CDL driver and having your truck annually inspected, and by you going to go get a checkup every 2 years if you're required to do so, it's all you need. Now, as far as trucking goes, you know, for my endeavor for my farm, I'm insured under my farm. And so, you know, I'm not a commercial carrier, I'm a private carrier. So one of the things I found out when I bought my truck is I didn't know is, do I need to get a DOT number? Nobody had an answer for me. So I actually had to call the Ohio State Patrol because I'm in Ohio. And they told me, oh, how big's your truck? I go, she goes, is it over 26,000 gross vehicle weight? I said, yes, it is. I said, mine's 33. She goes, you need to get a DOT number. And the DOT number didn't cost me anything, so I had to jump through the hoops, use my farm name, and became to be considered a private hauler. I haul, you know, manure, grain, and they ask you what you actually would haul, and then you get assigned a number. So that's what I've been running on ever since. And because I am under the farm, you know, and I have a dump truck, you know, even though it's a single axle, my insurance isn't all that high because it's under my farm policy. But if I was a commercial hauler with a dump truck, I'm hearing horror stories that a lot of guys, you know, want to get in a dump truck driving but can't because your insurance could be $1,000, $2,000 monthly. That's crazy, you know. So it's kind of nice to have the farm realm where I can kind of fall under that and keep my insurance low. That allows me to have the truck to do the things that I need to do, because I move a lot of dirt, manure, you know, and products like that all the time. And if it wasn't for that, I would be stuck. And I did not know anything about how expensive the insurance was until I bought the truck, and I'm finding out years later. So what I'm trying to tell you is owning a farm and being involved in a farm and having a semi-sized truck makes a huge difference. Now, what's the other reasons why I want a semi-sized truck? Well, what I've learned also is that, when I started my agricultural career, every farm has a dually, as a pickup truck or a dually, but the problem is dually trucks are pretty expensive, and they have limitations on what they can haul behind them, based on the trailers. Also, gooseneck trailers are pretty pricey sometimes. So what I've learned in my endeavors once I wound up getting my CDL is that you have single axle and semi trucks aren't that expensive. You can pick one up for anywhere from $12,000 up to $25,000, a truck that basically might only have a couple 100,000 miles on it, and it's in really good shape, and it'll pull stronger, last longer. The engines will last longer. They're built to be safer, and you're going to pay a lot less for them. So for me, once you have that CDL, you can go out and buy anything you darn want, and that's what's so nice about it. If you had a Class B, you're stuck with like a box truck, or maybe a dump truck size vehicle. But having a Class A, you basically can drive anything. Whether I want to get a 53-foot trailer, just basically anything I want. And that's what's so nice about having the CDL. And the second thing that's nice about the CDL is if I ever want to do a side job or just work for somebody for a short minute, I can always get a job anywhere with the CDL. And that's what keeps you employable. So if something ever happens as hard times, as long as you're not having drug problems, alcoholic problems, or a bad driving record, you can pretty much get a job anywhere in the trucking industry. And that's what's a great thing too. I'm not saying that the trucking industry is lucrative, and I don't know if I really would want to drive a truck all day long, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't think I could do that. But I can tell you that I like doing things for myself, and I like the opportunity to know that I have a truck, and I do have the opportunity, if I need to, that I can go out and get a job trucking. So I do think that it is worth getting a CDL, even if the class costs you $5,000 to $6,000. Is it worth the investment? Sure. And if you're a farmer, that's a write-off because you're getting training and it's going to help you on your farm. And so there you go, another wonderful write-off that you can have for your taxes. But if you're just getting into farming, I didn't even think it's a good thing to do is have a CDL. There's a lot of guys that push the envelope all the time, whether they're landscapers or they're working construction or doing some side stuff with their skid steer. You're pushing the envelope because I know you're probably driving and you need a CDL and you don't have one. And eventually it's going to catch up to you and you're going to get in some trouble. And it's not worth the frustration. If you go out and get this Class A CDL, you'll be good as gold. You can do just about anything. When I went and got my CDL, there was like 15 people in my class, and I was the only one that passed. And it was pretty sad. A lot of them didn't want to practice. A lot of them didn't want to do the things that they needed to do. And a lot of them went and took that truck driving school thinking they're just going to walk out into a pot of gold. And the problem is some of them never backed up a trailer in their entire life. So when it came down to it, they had no clue what they're doing. And some of them, it was scary to have a thought to them even driving. So, when you talk about, somebody just jumping in a truck, it's very easy to get killed. A lot of us know what it's like to, drive a car and people cutting you off, and there's a lot of road rage out there. And a lot of you that live on a farm know what it's like to drive down the road pulling equipment behind a tractor and somebody's knuckleheads almost run you off the road. Imagine driving a big semi-truck, and I can understand the frustrations of truckers when little cars jump in front of you and could easily cause an accident. And they don't realize that you're not going to stop and you will kill them. So it's kind of a dangerous realm, and I give truckers a lot of thumbs up for putting up with a lot of stuff, and it's tough to really pay attention all the time watching the other drivers. But I think that going to the class and learning a lot about trucking is well worth it. And I think that if you are a farmer, it is in your best interest to get a CDL. It'll never hurt you, and there won't ever be a question. But there are exemptions that exist out there, and you can run with that. But I do personally believe that a CDL will give you a lot better credibility and will help you out a lot better down the road. And it's something nobody can really take away from you because at least you're going to have certification. My biggest concern, if you had that exemption and you did get in an accident or somebody did get hurt, you're going to be challenged and questioned in court all the time. And I have a law enforcement background. This is why I tell you this. And I think that you just want to get yourself covered. And I feel so much better knowing that I have a CDL. It's on my driver's license. If somebody pulls me over, runs me immediately, they'll know I have one. You know, they have a Public Utilities Commission in Ohio, which is another regulatory body for trucking. And I am a private hauler, so I would have had to get, when I got my DOT number, I actually had to register with them, and they told me I was exempt because, again, I'm a private hauler, so it doesn't apply to me. But if you're a commercial hauler, meaning you're hauling for somebody else for profit, you know, automatically you're going to be stuck, you know, paying into that too. And so you're going to have another regulatory body that's going to be looking over your shoulder. But, you know, there are a lot of benefits to farming, and I guess I can use the farmer excuse as well as I can use the CDL excuse, but I think it's always better to have it. Those are my thoughts on the matter. Hopefully you guys got something from this. And, you know, personally, I think that if you are into farming or you just want to start farming, maybe you do some side work, go get your CDL, because I'll tell you what, once you have that, it opens up all kinds of doors, and you know, you just never know where you're going to be. Because like I say, once you start, you get bigger. You know, if this tractor behind me, it's 12,000 pounds. You know, and the problem is, you know, when you're pulling, even if you had a 26,000 pound or less gross vehicle weight trailer, you can only pull 10,000 pounds behind you. Well, this tractor by itself, not counting the trailer, is already going to give you, you know, 12,000 pounds. You need a CDL just to haul this trailer with a pickup truck, for the most part, if you're under 26,000 pounds. So it's going to cause you more of a problem. And I think that you're almost better off just to have a CDL. You'll never go wrong. And like I say, it's not worth the fines and all the regulations. Now, the one thing I have to say is, do I like the fact that I am paying extra and jumping through the hoops by getting an annual inspection? I don't really like that, but on the other hand, I know my truck is 100% operational, that it's working effectively. It's been inspected by a mechanic, and I know that every year I'm going and I'm driving safely. And that's really, it gives you a good idea that your truck is well maintained. And that's all I want, and it's well worth it to me knowing that my truck is operational. You know, because it is an investment, and then that's what I did. I bought this for an investment to be used. So, again, with that said, thanks for watching, guys. And in closing, go get a CDL. You won't regret it, and I think it'll open up some doors. Talk to you later.